Welcome to the Resilient Philosopher. This is David Leon Dantes, and today I want to take you into a conversation that has been living quietly in the background of my mind for years. It's one of those subjects that follows you through life, through school, through work, through society, and it shows up on every form, every application, every identity document, and now even through the digital spaces where we spend our time. I've tried writing about this, I've tried distilling it into a clean paragraphs or short reflections. But some topics are too human to compress into a single article. Some require voice, tone, and presence. So today we are talking about the boxes, the labels, the categories, and the fear that hides behind all of them. I've always told my friends something simple but honest. I am too dark to be placed confidently in one category, and too light to be placed confidently in another. And every time I fill out a form, every time I see those boxes lined up like a multiple choice test about your humanity, I ask myself, which one of these was designed for me? And more importantly, which one of these truly sees me? Because most of us don't fit neatly into a box. The older we get, the more we realize that identity is not a square, it's a story. Let's talk about the concept of race. When we strip away politics, history, and emotions, what race are we? Truly. Homo sapien, that is, one species, one human family, and the rest are labels stitched together by culture, geography, migration, and power structures. We confuse race with ethnicity. We confuse ethnicity with culture. We confuse culture with nationality. And then we shove all of that confusion into a single checkbox. But your identity is not a checkbox, it's a journey, a mosaic, a story written by generations before you, and the choices you make today. Someone may call themselves American and yet follow traditions, holidays, myths, and cultural practices rooted in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East or indigenous tribes on this continent. So, what does that identity even mean? How can a box and a government form capture that a life that includes mixed ancestry, multiple cultures, migration histories, spiritual traditions from different continents, and a worldview shaped by dozens of influences? If we're honest, it can't. The box is too small for the person standing in front of it. And this is where the truth begins to peel itself open. Labels were not created for clarity. Labels were created for control. They were created out of fear of losing identity, fear of losing majority status, fear of blending, fear of change. Boxes are the bureaucratic skeleton of insecurity. And that insecurity becomes a political weapon, a social filter, I should say, and eventually a digital algorithm. Now let's step into the modern version of those boxes. In the past, you checked a label on a form, Today, the form checks you. Social media doesn't ask what your identity is, it studies it, it calculates it, and it measures it with your clicks, your scrolls, your reactions, your purchases, your fear, your anger, your silence, your curiosity, or your boredom. Algorithms turn identity into math, into predictions, into suggestions. Your box becomes a profile, your profile becomes data, and that data becomes the echo chamber where you spend most of your online life. The algorithm learns your labels, even the ones you don't say out loud, and once it assigns you a box, it keeps you there by feeding you only what confirm the identity you've been placed into. That's the danger. When labels become code, identity becomes a digital cage. The boxes from the old world separated us on paper. The boxes in the digital world separates us in our mind. Algorithms are designed to keep you engaged by feeding you more of what you already believe, more of what triggers you, more of what keeps you scrolling. Fear becomes content, content becomes anger, anger becomes tribalism, and tribalism becomes identity. You start believing the world is divided because you feed is divided. You believe your opinions are correct because no one in your digital environment challenges them. You start judging others because the algorithm taught you to judge before you think. This is why labels matter. Not because they define who you are, but because they define how the system sees you. Identity should be something you define for yourself, not something assigned to you, not by a government, not by a school form, not by a workplace, not by an algorithm, and not by the fears of society. Identity is a personal, spiritual, philosophical, emotional, cultural, and historical. You're not one box. You're the chapters that shaped you, every ancestor that walked before you, every choice that you here, and every experience that rebuilt you. Labels separate us because fear separates us. Fear of the other, fear of what's different, fear of what we don't understand. But when you look closer, you notice something important. People don't fear differences. They fear losing what they think gives them power. Labels becomes lines, lines become walls. Those walls become ideologies, and those ideologies become wars, verbal, political, cultural, and sometimes literal. One box believes it's better than the other box believes it's better or is threatened, and the cycle continues. There is one place where labels are relevant, and that's in medicine. Certain ancestries respond differently to medication, illnesses, infections, and treatments. That's biology, not politics. Knowing your biological background can save your life. But outside of that, in opportunity, in education, in employment, in citizenship, your label doesn't matter. But it does because people use labels as shortcuts to judgment. Empires understood something modern nations forgot. Identity was fluid, belonging was earned, citizenship was shared. When you lived under an empire, you became part of that identity, not divided by the color of your skin or the land your grandparents came from. Identity was meant I should say, participation, contribution, and unity. If ancient civilizations could see identity as flexible, why do we treat it so rigid? Today, people identify as American but still divide themselves by region: North versus the South, East versus the West, urban versus rural, coastal versus island, blue versus red, one ideology versus another. A single nation fractured into cultural islands. In a country that can't even agree with itself, how can any of us expect a race box to capture our humanity? So the next time you see those boxes, the next time someone pressures you into choosing who you are according to their options, ask yourself, is this a question born from curiosity or from fear? Is there a purpose to understand you or to criticize you? Because if the question is irrelevant to your qualifications, your character, your abilities, or your contribution, why is it being asked? And more importantly, what fear is driving it? The fear is not in your answer, the fear is in how people might answer the way, might see, might answer the same way you do. That is the fear. Because the more people that might feel like the same way as you can harm those that fear and ask those questions. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This conversation matters because identity matters, not the labels, but the truth behind them. This episode has an expanded written version available as an article at visionleon.com. If today's conversation made you pause, reflect, or rethink the boxes you've been placed into, I invite you to read a full article for deeper insights, references, and additional reflections. I will also include how boxes and labels and fear can harm us from a leadership standpoint or view. And while you're there at visionleon.com, explore the rest of the philosophy, check out the books, Leadership Lessons from the Edge of Mental Health, Mastering the Self, and The Resilient Philosopher, The Prism of Reality. These books support the mission, they help keep the conversation alive, and most importantly, they help others discover this philosophy. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone. Leave a comment, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening from. Your voice helps this message reach others who need it. Until next time, this is David Leon Dantes, the resilient philosopher. Thank you for listening, and remember, always show up for yourself.